I will reveal something that most people never realize until it's too late. It's not your beauty that stays in their mind. It's not your laughter, your perfume, or the softness of your touch. What truly binds someone to you is not what they see, but what they cannot explain. It's the quiet uncertainty, the space between what they think they know and what they still cannot decode. That's where fascination begins, because the human mind does not chase what it already understands. It chases what feels just out of reach. We live in an age of overexposure. Everyone talks, posts, explains. But what if the secret to lasting attraction is silence? What if mystery, not constant availability, is the oxygen that keeps emotional fire alive? Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But transformation never happens in predictability. It happens in the unknown, in that emotional tension where curiosity breathes. So today I will share with you something powerful. Not a game, not manipulation, but a way of speaking that awakens thought. A way of creating emotional resonance so deep that it keeps echoing in their mind long after you've left the room. Imagine this. The night is quiet. He lies in bed, scrolling half-heartedly through his phone, trying to distract himself from a thought he can't name. Then it returns. Your voice. That one question you asked hours ago, the one that slipped into the conversation so effortlessly he barely noticed it at first. Now it repeats in his head, circling, scratching gently at the walls of his certainty. You didn't demand anything. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't wait for a reply. You simply left a seed. And now that seed grows. Because you see, people are not haunted by what you say clearly. They're haunted by what you let them wonder about. The truth few understand is this. The more predictable you are, the easier it is to forget you. Predictability gives closure. Mystery keeps the mind open. And here lies the psychology behind it. The more emotional calmness you radiate, the more depth you appear to hold. It's not about distance or coldness. It's about presence without pressure. It's about speaking with the serenity of someone who doesn't need to convince. Jung believed that the subconscious mind reacts most strongly to symbols, things that represent, not things that declare. When you communicate from depth, you become a living symbol of something they can feel but cannot define, and that is irresistible. Let's be honest. Confrontation never makes someone fall deeper. Pressure never creates closeness. Only curiosity does. Curiosity is the bridge between two souls. When you radiate quiet confidence, you send a message without words. I am complete on my own, but I allow you to discover me. That permission, that freedom, makes another person lean in. But here's where most fail. They talk too much about how they feel. They analyze. They justify. In doing so, they take away the listener's chance to feel the mystery. You do not need to be fully understood to be deeply felt. Now think of a moment when you were with someone, and silence said more than any sentence could. Maybe your eyes met, and something unspoken moved between you. Something fragile, uncertain, magnetic. That's emotional gravity. And if you know how to hold that moment, it lingers in memory far longer than words ever could. You see, men, and people in general, are not captivated by explanations. They're captivated by reflection. By the way you make them look inward, not outward. When you stop trying to be understood and instead create understanding within them, you change everything. Carl Jung taught that every encounter is also an encounter with ourselves. So the goal is not to make them think of you as much as to make them see themselves differently through you. That's what binds them, the inner revelation you awaken. But this art requires mastery. You must know when to speak and when to let silence breathe, when to look and when to withdraw. Because every word loses its power if it's said too soon or explained too much. The human brain is wired to seek patterns and resolve uncertainty. When you leave an emotional question hanging, one that touches truth without demanding response, the mind cannot rest until it finds meaning. And every time it tries, it circles back to you. So before you learn the question I'm about to reveal later in this video, you must understand why it works. It works because it lives in the space between logic and emotion, the exact place where reason ends and curiosity begins. It doesn't chase validation. It awakens reflection. Imagine being so emotionally centered that your calm presence disarms the other person. No tension in your shoulders, no anxious tone, no pleading look. Just stillness. Stillness that says, I am fine with whatever truth emerges, but I'm curious to see if you are. This calmness is rare. It is power disguised as peace. Most people live in emotional turbulence. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of silence. When someone appears who does not carry those fears, the mind instinctively leans toward them. It wants to understand that calm, it wants to touch it, and that quietly is the beginning of deep psychological attraction. Now imagine this moment. You are talking to him. No drama, no expectations, just quiet presence. He doesn't know that every word you speak is chosen with intention, that every pause carries meaning. And then, between laughter and silence, you ask it, the question, not to test him, not to provoke, but to awaken. Your voice is soft, your energy calm, your eyes steady, not searching for approval, not fearing rejection. You say it as though it simply appeared in your thoughts, without weight, without strategy. And yet those words will echo inside him far longer than anything else you've ever said. Because this question doesn't ask for information. It invites introspection. It doesn't demand attention. It earns it. Picture it. He's driving home later that night. Music plays, lights blur across the windshield, but his mind is somewhere else. He hears your voice again. He replays your gaze the way you said it, calm, almost detached, but with something beneath it, something that didn't need to be explained, and suddenly he feels that strange unease, the urge to understand what you really meant. That's when emotional attachment begins, not through words that flatter, but through questions that haunt, because the mind becomes addicted to unfinished thoughts. It loops them, reanalyzes them, searches for closure that never comes. Every attempt to figure you out ties him deeper into emotional focus on you. And the secret? You never chase the answer. You let silence do the work. Psychologically, silence is the most powerful amplifier of thought. It forces the subconscious to fill in the blanks. When you resist the urge to explain, you give the other person the freedom and the compulsion to interpret. And that interpretation always comes from their own emotional truth. Carl Jung described this as projection, when we see in others the parts of ourselves we haven't yet understood. When you leave that silence open, he projects. He fills it with his fears, his hopes, his curiosity. He begins to see reflections of himself in you, and that's what makes the connection unbreakable. But there's something else, something even more subtle. Your energy after asking the question. Most people destroy the magic by waiting anxiously for a reply. They break the tension too soon, explaining, softening, apologizing. Don't. Say it once. Let the moment breathe. And then simply move on. Because detachment is magnetic. When your words carry emotional weight, yet your attitude says, I need nothing from you, it sends a paradoxical signal. It tells his subconscious that you hold power. Not power over him, but power within yourself. And the human psyche is irresistibly drawn to that. Jung would say that this moment touches the archetype of the anima, the feminine symbol of depth, reflection, and mystery that lives in every man's mind. When you speak from calm self-awareness, you activate that archetype. You become a mirror to his inner world, the bridge between his conscious logic and hidden emotion. That's why this question works. It bypasses ego and goes straight to the unconscious. He can't respond with rehearsed lines or quick rationalizations. Because it's not about you, it's about him. It makes him wonder, who am I when she's not around? What do I feel and why? What does her presence awaken that I can't find elsewhere? These are not simple thoughts. They shake something deep, something ancient. And that's why, days later, he still remembers. Not because you were loud or demanding, but because you made him feel something he couldn't name. Now here's the deeper truth. You didn't create those emotions. They were already there. You only illuminated them. You acted as a mirror, showing him the parts of himself he never noticed. And no one forgets the person who reveals their own depth to them. Most people try to build attraction through absence, disappearing, ignoring, waiting for attention. But absence only creates fear of loss. Reflection creates fascination. Fear fades. Fascination grows. So understand this difference. You don't want to be the person who is missed. You want to be the person who is remembered. Missing someone comes from emptiness. Remembering them comes from meaning, and meaning lasts. It doesn't depend on how often you speak or whether you text back quickly. It depends on what emotional experience you represent in their mind. If every interaction with you awakens thought, self-awareness, or a calm emotional mystery, then you live in their consciousness permanently. That is the psychology of lasting connection. Not attachment through fear, but memory through impact. The moment you master this, everything changes. You stop chasing reactions. You start creating reflections. You stop explaining your worth. You start embodying it. Your energy says, I don't need to prove who I am. You'll feel it when you're alone. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's what makes someone unforgettable. And here lies the paradox. The less you try to be remembered, the more you are. Because the one who doesn't seek to impress often becomes the one who leaves the deepest impression. This isn't manipulation. It's emotional intelligence. Awareness of how human psychology really works. You are not bending anyone's will. You are awakening truth through calm authenticity. So next time you look at him, or anyone whose mind you wish to touch, remember this. Words don't stay because of volume. They stay because of resonance, because they touch something universal, a feeling, a doubt, a truth. That's what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you speak from awareness, you help another person glimpse their unconscious. You become the bridge between what they think they are and what they could become. And that is unforgettable. That is attraction born not of need, but of depth. So don't strive to be the loudest. Be the calmest voice that lingers. Don't chase to be loved. Speak to be remembered. And never forget, the real power doesn't lie in being understood. It lies in being felt. If this touched you, subscribe for more reflections on the hidden language of the mind. Because once you learn to understand what lies beneath words, you will never communicate the same way again.